On Thursday, March 27th, 2025, we received the second look into Metroid Prime 4's world as a whole. And I admit, it's been about 3 days since then, and I can't stop staring. It is absolutely stunning from my point of view. And there are a couple things that I wanted to point out from a personal perspective that if you go back and look through, I think you'll find rather, eh, maybe it's small details. Some might think it's more obvious, some might not be interested at all. I don't know. But, overall, what we get from this new planet of Vuros is a lush, verdant haven. Something that we haven't seen in the Prime trilogy since the Talon overworld in Prime 1. And even then, Talon overworld was such a minute part of the world as a whole that it was rather a footnote in the grand scheme of things. Vuros looks to be possibly the most verdant, lush haven that we have ever had in 3D Metroid. And truth be told, I can't wait to go just explore, see what the world has in store. The new abilities that come along with this, including the psychic capabilities of Samus, as well as her future of growing, or I suppose her future growth in this franchise, to me, looks promising. Some characters have a tendency to stagnate over time, and I'll be honest, Samus is one of them. Up until the newer games in the, let's say, the 2015-ish, with the re-release of Metroid 2 for the 3DS, if my memory serves accurate, we didn't really get much for new abilities for Samus since Super Metroid, with the bulk of Samus' abilities all falling into what I consider to be kind of tropes for the character. You have the missiles, the super missiles, some form of X-ray visor. You have the speed boost. You have the shine spark, which admittedly didn't really get much in turn, or got next to no investment in the 3D versions of the game so far. And really, most of Samus's capabilities can be summed up there. A couple of suits for easier traversal through certain environments like high heat, cold environments, or water. And boom, you have the basic building blocks of Samus's kit for most of the franchise. A couple notable odd or one-off upgrades pop up here and there, like the Phazon suit, the light suit, or even the dark suit. But in general, everything kind of ties in to this basic approach. Samus now having access to what can be described as telekinetic capabilities opens up a whole new realm of possibilities for where this character's future strength will be. And I know that this is all planned out, but oh my goodness, does this look and feel like the beginning of a new Metroid renaissance, the likes of which we haven't seen since 2000. And to be realistic here, I know that this is the results of the last, I guess, 5 years worth of 5 years worth of work in general to make Prime 4 come to life the way it has. And that's something that cannot be overstated. The reality of the current game market and the development cycle of most games is that most of the time there are, I suppose, the mentality is to rush, to get as much done in the shortest amount of time possible. This rush mentality, this push for more, ends up often coming to the detriment or even outright making games less than they could be. A delayed game is potentially will eventually reach its potential. A rush game will never have the chance. And I urge those who look at this and watch or play the game in the future that they approach with that mentality that a rushed game will never reach what it could be. And that's the thing that I love about, I suppose, Retro's design philosophy here. If you look at Metroid Prime 1, 2, and 3, each of them were developed within a time span of about 1 to 2 years. Now, admittedly, these are they're a tad on the smaller side. But what sets Metroid apart from a lot of game franchises, especially at the time, is the level of depth and detail that goes into the environments. If you look at, I'm going to look at Twilight Princess. It came out at around the same time as Metroid, Metroid Prime 2 and Metroid Prime 3 era. And these two games, comparatively to Twilight Princess, Twilight Princess has a lot of depth and visual detail, but it is nowhere near the level of depth in detail, in lighting, in the world itself, that I believe that Prime 3 was able to accomplish. And Twilight Princess, to truly show what it was actually designed to be, has had a remaster, an HD remaster, designed to showcase just what the game actually was meant to look like. And it is beautiful. But even just looking at the detailing on this door and how it opens with that little flash in the center that expands out to the edge, each of the six sides moving in their own direction to effectively open it in a hexagonal shape. That's a lot of detail for just a door. And I want to actually make this abundantly clear that when I say that Prime 4 looks stunning, I am saying that every single shot, every single projectile, every single minute detail that I thought that this world would have is so carefully crafted that it makes me, it's amazing. Anywho, one of the things that did catch my attention with the Prime 4 gameplay trailer came in the form of actually I suppose the suit itself. Now, for those that haven't seen it yet, I urge you to take a look at it. The final, I suppose, shot showcasing what ends up in the game is a look at the new suit. It is black and crimson, but it's this very reflective, almost like hot rod crimson. It showcases a level of light analysis and ray tracing within the game, but it also showcases, I think, a little bit more about what's going on Vuros than some might be able to approach. If you look at the suit designs of each game, in the Prime trilogy. You have Prime 1, which had Samus's suit being Samus's suit. You had the Power suit, which looked like the standard Power suit. You had the Varya suit, which looked like the standard Varya suit, with the added notion of the shoulder pads were bulkier and they showcased a lot more of the character's overall build better. It made Samus look like a hulking Goliath, a walking tank. And that in and of itself was intimidating. But then you get into the later ones. You had the dark purple and bright yellow of the gravity suit. And then you had the black and silver of the Phazon suit. Now I want you to hang on to that. The black, silver, and red of the Phazon suit. Turning the page a little bit, we gotta go back to Prime 2's suits. You have the Varya suit, the dark suit, the light suit in general here. And the dark suit and light suit look nothing like the prior suits that Samus has worn. They're bulkier in different ways in different places. The shoulder pads of the dark suit are these oblong circular pads. There's a little bit more of the... It almost showcases some of the architecture of the Luminoth in the suit itself. The light suit was very streamlined, sleek beyond anything else that Samus has ever used. The shoulder pads were much more, much smaller, much more, how do I want to put it? They were less of a burden on Samus, shall I say. But also, in the center of the chest, there were a series of lights that came out that, based on my understanding, also provided a level of protection for Samus. Now, look at the PED Hazard suit. And admittedly, this suit is kind of one of the weirdest looking ones. You have the dark red of the headpiece, dark blacks, blues, dark navy blues, and you have the kind of neon coming through with the Phazon corruption throughout. Where am I getting at with this? The new suit design is incredibly sleek. Something that, at first glance, a different color palette, you could mistake it for the light suit. And that, I think, is intentional. The light suit was a fusion of Luminoth and Chozo technology, something that we haven't yet to fully grasp, fully to see what could have possibly been. But what made the light suit so unique was the power source that made it powerful. This being the light of Aether. The other side of it is the darker colored suits. You have the dark suit, the Phazon suit, and the PED Hazard suit. And each of these three have middling approaches. The PED suit is the PEDs and the Phazon suit are the darkest, having origins reaching from the villains of each section of the story. That being the Phazon corruption from Dark Samus, or simply Phazon in general corrupting Samus in the first place, in the form of the Phazon suit in Prime 1. Again, this is all intentional. This is all meant to be here. What it makes me think is that the villains on the planet Viros have a power source of some kind that is going to allow Samus to activate this newer tool, this new suit style. And while I don't know what it's going to be called or what its origins are, I can safely assume that the Vuros suit, for now, is going to possibly be a fusion of the ideologies of the prior suits, being a symbol of hope, similar to the light suit, but also powered by the villains. There's one other small detail that came up, and it might be nothing, but they mentioned time and space. Now, I had a epiphany of sorts that whenever space-time is mentioned, usually my knee-jerk reaction is to go, hey, they're the cause of something that we don't know about from the beginning, because that's just how I am as a person. If there is a unexplained piece of information that I can point at and say, hey, this could fit here, that tends to be where I point my finger. The space-time issue here suggests to me that Samus is both the savior and the problem. So, I talked a little bit at length the other day about how Phazon may have been a creation from the planet Bryyo. That the pollution that was sent off into space by the Lords of Science on Bryyo could potentially have been what created Phazon to begin with. And I'll be honest, I'm not really sure that I agree with that. At least not at the moment. To my knowledge, Phazon never really got a true explanation as to how it came to be. Only that one day Phase appeared, it did its thing, and it sent off the Leviathan seeds from one planet to the next to try to create copies of itself. We don't know if it's the first one. Heck, we don't know how many of these there have been in the past. We're not even sure if Phase is the origin of Phazon. And that's kind of the big question that plagued my mind watching that opening. Is what if Samus herself is the individual who created Phazon? Now, I'm not saying this is to be fact. Let me be 100% clear on that. I am suggesting, however, that this game may just open up the doors in a way that might suggest that we may learn more about the origin of certain historical landmarks within the trilogy that have remained relative mystery to this point in time. And Phazon is the one that I'm pointing at because Phazon is just that big of an unknown in this franchise as a whole. But overall, I think that's where I want to put my hat for now, is Samus causes a problem. Now, the beautiful thing about this is if she does, in fact, create Phazon in the distant past or something, then at the very least, we also know that she is the individual who cleans it up, who solves the issue of Phazon in the future. But that time travel is a muddy thing, because it's very difficult to discern cause and effect. And so, I don't know whether or not I really want to hang my hat there 100%, but it is worth thinking about, in my mind. Anywho, Let me know down in the comments below if there is anything that stuck out to you. Any theories you have from this direct as a whole. I'd love to read it. Because I want to know what other people out there are thinking. Anywho, we're in Prime 3 at the moment, and we're in Elysia. And the planet of Elysia is very much a steampunk haven. And as such, there are a lot of situations in this location that could leave a little bit to be desired. But be that as it may, one of them is that every major opponent enemy in this area is some form of technology created by the Chozo in the distant past. Elysia, at least Skytown, was designed as a monitoring station, a place where they could keep an eye on the comings and goings, the weather patterns, etc. of Elysia as a whole, as the thick clouds are in a perpetual storm. Think Jupiter. But the thing is with Jupiter is, when you're dealing with a planet as chaotic as this, the easiest way to avoid any major issue with your health, shall you say, is to avoid ever coming in contact with the storms. Now, in this case, the storms on Elysia are actually aren't as thick as some of them on Jupiter would be. It's not like it's raining diamonds. But we do end up with some major concerns from the storms themselves. Mainly that there is next to no feasible way to enter the storm clouds of Elysia to be able to take down the shield of the Leviathan seed in this sector. So, we have to take a different approach than we did on Bryyo. Where Bryyo, the whole plan was to shut down the anti-aircraft guns, and then we had to shut down the anti-aircraft guns. We had to bomb the two major power sources of a shield over top of the Leviathan seed, and then enter it directly. This one, we are focusing more so on a different aspect of Samus's kit for a bit. And that is the grapple beam. Now, in Prime 1 and 2, the grapple beam was just attached to Samus's arm, but no longer, no. It must also be attached to Samus's ship. This allows Samus to transport objects multiple times heavier than anything she would normally be able to carry as a standard human. And to be real, she probably can anyways, but that's beside the point. As a standard human, Samus technically cannot do that. Thus, the ship gets involved. Now, the ship itself has, I suppose, the major goal or task of transporting bits and pieces from one area of Skytown to another, to effectively create a bomb, to be able to drop said bomb on top of the shield, dispersing the energy and allowing Samus to enter the Leviathan Sea to deal with the next major threat. Fantastic, wonderful. How? So, at this point, really everything is just going to have to fall into place when it happens. And that's kind of a scary thought, to be honest. A lot of what I've been considering for what could be considered optimal or suboptimal circumstances in the Prime trilogy have to do with how different aspects of Samus's kit fit into the world. And this particular one, I both like and dislike. I like that they're going a different route with a lot of this, because Samus having power bombs in this game in particular just, well, truth be told, it actually takes away from a lot of the set pieces in the franchise, or in this particular game as a whole. So, anyway, that's my 2 cents on it. Anyways, if you're looking at the time, I'm about to die. So if you like what you see, drop a like, leave subscribe, and I hope to catch you next time. Anyways, you know, Samus is the only character that I can think of that has a KO count in the species. Maybe somebody should talk about that.